In the late 1800s, the first gangs in Chicago were merely loosely organized groups of immigrant youth. These youngsters, seeking a sense of belonging, formed alliances. Through the early 1900s, fire brigades filled the void left by an unestablished fire department. These localized, decentralized groups were visible citywide. Surprisingly, they often engaged in disputes, contributing to a culture ripe for evolution. This cultural shift, seemingly innocent at its inception, grew into a breeding ground for organized crime. These groups would often brawl with each other, sowing the seeds of a culture that would later evolve into organized crime. Fast forward to 1910, when Big Jim Colosimo founded the Chicago outfit on the South Side. This pivotal moment in history isn't just a random event, but the commencement of a saga that left an indelible mark on the city of Chicago. A man of power and influence, Big Jim Colosimo was a notable figure, whose presence was felt far and wide. His brainchild, the notorious Chicago outfit, was the cornerstone of a new chapter in the city's crime world. It was the dawn of a new epoch, one that brought with it an unprecedented wave of lawlessness. The South Side was forever changed, its once peaceful streets now brimming with an air of danger. This marked the beginning of a new era in Chicago's underworld. As the 1950s rolled around, Chicago witnessed substantial demographic overhauls as a result of the significant immigration influx, primarily from Puerto Rico. This immigration wave brought along a sweeping cultural change, diversifying the city's social fabric. However, this shift wasn't without turmoil and conflict. The changing demographics sparked friction, leading to the creation of numerous gangs. These weren't isolated instances but formed part of a larger, more significant phenomenon that came to define the city's narrative. A significant manifestation of this was seen especially in areas like Humboldt Park. The 1970s witnessed a dramatic upsurge in gang-related crime and violence, shaking up communities and unsettling the very foundation of social order. This wave of crime was not just an isolated phenomenon, but a symptom of deep-rooted societal unrest. The epicenter of this turbulence was none other than the hot, tension-filled summer of 1971. This specific season was marked by a noticeable rise in the rate of Hispanic-on-Hispanic homicides, throwing the Latino community into a whirlwind of fear and chaos. This shocking spiral of violence could primarily be attributed to the notorious Latin Kings gang. Their election meetings, notorious for their volatility, witnessed an unprecedented level of carnage and bloodshed, contributing significantly to this drastic rise in crime. The summer of 1971, in particular, saw a significant increase in Hispanic-on-Hispanic homicides due to Latin Kings gang election meetings. Fast forward to the 21st century, in July 2021, Operation Legend marked an unprecedented turn in crime control. This operation, unlike any other, demonstrated the audacity of federal law enforcement. The Black Disciples, a notorious gang known for its involvement in illicit activities, became the main target. This operation, centered in the infamous Englewood neighborhood on Chicago's South Side, sought to curb drugs and gun violations. It was a massive undertaking, involving countless hours of surveillance and planning. And the result? Federal agents successfully arresting 27 Black Disciples gang members associated with drugs and gun violations in the Englewood neighborhood on the South Side of Chicago. Lack of opportunity and economic hardship, particularly in the form of redlining, have forced many citizens to turn to illegal drug sales for income. Economic disparity and social injustice, largely propagated by the city's own administration and banking sector, have left the working class with few alternatives. This desperate scenario has fueled a culture of violence and crime, with gangs forming a significant part of this narrative. Former Superintendent Gary McCarthy acknowledged this grim reality, stating that a small portion of the population is responsible for a large portion of violent crime. The gang problem is generational, a vicious cycle that seems to be never-ending. The grandfather was a gang member, the father's a gang member, and the kid right now is going to be a gang member. Interestingly, in 2012, former Mayor Rahm Emanuel made a radical move that reshaped the Chicago Police Department's operational tactics. He took a decision that many perceived to be a paradigm shift in crime management. In a controversial move, he disbanded the anti-gang unit, a decision that sparked a heated debate about its impact on the city's escalating violence. Rahm believed that the solution to the city's violence problem was rooted in community policing. He saw more value in beat patrols that would be right in the heart of communities, driving more localized and preventive policing. He was of the opinion that beat patrols, unlike anti-gang units, would offer a more long-term solution to violence. Chicago's street gangs, known as nations, mostly fall under two core factions: the People Nation and the Folks Nation. Emerging from the city's urban sprawl, these factions are the key players in Chicago's gang landscape. But they are not alone. A few nations like the Black Soul Nation choose the path of independence. These entities, however, do not dominate the scene. Dominance often lies with these structured gangs and the cliques. These cliques, however, flout the conventional structure. And while some street gangs maintain a hierarchical structure and engage in traditional gang activity, others, known as cliques, do not follow the traditional structure. Chicago's gang culture has a rich and complex history, deeply intertwined with the city's socio-economic fabric. Beginning with immigrant youth gangs in the 1800s, the culture has morphed into today's intricate street gang web. This transformation reveals an urgent necessity for sweeping reforms. Crucially, Chicago's narrative serves as a potent reminder of how socio-economic disparities can shape the destiny of a city and its people. According to recent statistics, Chicago has seen a significant increase in violent crime. This surge in violence has deeply impacted the city and its residents, instilling a climate of fear and uncertainty. Law enforcement agencies have been working tirelessly to combat this trend, deploying new strategies and technologies in an effort to restore peace and stability. These statistics underscore the urgent need for effective and sustainable solutions to combat crime and violence in Chicago. Two of the most notorious street gangs in the United States are the Bloods and Crips. Formed in Los Angeles during the 1970s, these gangs have grown to have a substantial influence, not only in their city of origin, but across the country. The Bloods, known for their red attire, and the Crips, recognized by their blue attire, have been involved in a deadly rivalry that has cost thousands of lives over the decades. This rivalry, fueled by territorial disputes and personal vendettas, has significantly heightened gang violence in many communities. Despite numerous attempts to broker peace between the two factions, the animosity persists, leading to a vicious cycle of retribution and violence. The Bloods and Crips continue to contribute significantly to gang violence in the United States, illustrating the deadly consequences of unchecked gang culture. Following the narrative of the Bloods and Crips, it's important to understand how this gang culture has spread beyond the borders of their city of origin. Gangs are no longer just a local problem, they've become a national issue. The proliferation of gang culture can be traced back to a combination of factors, including socio-economic conditions, mass incarceration, and the drug trade. Migratory patterns also play a key role, with gang members moving to new cities and establishing their presence there. This mobility has enabled gangs like the Bloods and Crips to expand their influence beyond Los Angeles, reaching into cities across the country. This spread has intensified gang violence nationwide, as new territories are claimed and rivalries are ignited. As we delve deeper into the world of gang culture, it becomes clear that the impact of these gangs extends far beyond their city of origin, affecting communities across the nation. This ripple effect underscores the urgency of addressing gang culture at both local and national levels. Before we shift focus to the Latin Kings, it's crucial to discuss another gang whose reach extends beyond national borders, the MS-13. Originating in Los Angeles in the 1980s, MS-13, also known as Mara Salvatrucha, was formed by Salvadoran immigrants fleeing civil war. The gang's influence quickly spread throughout the United States, and following deportation of many of its members, across Central America as well. Known for their tattoos and extreme violence, MS-13 is involved in a range of criminal activities, from drug trafficking to human smuggling. The gang's brutal tactics have led to a surge in violence wherever they establish a presence. While the United States has taken extensive measures to combat the MS-13 gang, their transnational nature presents unique challenges to law enforcement. This highlights the necessity for international cooperation in tackling the global issue of gang culture. As we'll see in the next segment, local gangs like the Latin Kings are also a significant part of the problem, reminding us that the battle against gang culture is fought on multiple fronts. As we venture into the 21st century, we bear witness to a significant rise in gang-related crime. This surge in gang activity has had a profound and devastating impact on communities worldwide, leading to a spike in violence and criminal activities. According to the National Gang Center, there's been a 35% increase in gang-related homicides in the last decade alone. This alarming statistic paints a chilling picture of the escalating violence that plagues our cities, a grim reminder that no community is immune to the ravages of gang culture. As we sift through these numbers, the urgency for effective and sustainable solutions to combat gang-related crime becomes glaringly apparent. It is a battle that requires the collective effort of law enforcement, policymakers, and communities. In the next segment, we'll take a closer look at the Latin Kings, a gang that continues to fuel this rising tide of violence. But as we delve into these statistics and explore the dynamics of gang culture, we are reminded that the fight against gang-related crime is a global challenge that demands a comprehensive and far-reaching response. As we navigate through the tangled web of gang culture, shifting our focus to the Latin Kings, one of the largest and most powerful Hispanic street gangs in the United States. Originating in Chicago in the 1940s, the Latin Kings have a significant presence in the city, with their influence stretching beyond the city's borders. Known for their black and gold attire, the Latin Kings are involved in a myriad of criminal activities including drug trafficking, robbery, and homicide. Their territorial disputes with rival gangs have significantly escalated gang-related violence in Chicago. The Latin Kings have not only shaped the city's gang culture, but also continue to influence the dynamics of gang violence in the city. Despite ongoing efforts by law enforcement to dismantle their operations, the Latin Kings remain a formidable force in Chicago's gang scene, reinforcing the complex and persistent nature of gang culture. As we venture into the 21st century, we bear witness to a significant rise in gang-related crime. Gangs like the Latin Kings, the Bloods, and the Crips have contributed to an alarming escalation in violence and criminal activities. According to statistics from the National Gang Center, gang-related homicides have seen an increase of approximately 35% since the turn of the century. Other crimes such as drug trafficking and robbery have also seen a sharp increase, with gangs responsible for up to 48% of violent crime in most jurisdictions. These crimes don't just represent numbers, they represent shattered communities, lost lives, and a cycle of violence that continues unabated. As we delve into these statistics, the urgent need for effective and sustainable solutions to combat gang-related crime becomes glaringly apparent.